So I spoke to my local friendly Caterpillar service tech today about my air and fuel issue because I did a bunch of stuff. I think I talked about it in one of my videos. Recently I put in an electric lift pump and changed out the fuel base, and it's still having the same issues with hard starting where it'll fire up and then die. And you know, I had the old 7.3 IDI before that, and that's always return lines, you know, air leak. So I've been trying to chase this air leak, so I texted my cat guy and said, hey, any suggestions how I can find this, fix it, remedies, whatever. And he suggested checking my oil pressure. He said that well, it's a Huey engine which needs oil pressure to run. The Huey pump itself has a reservoir on it, so this little guy here, that's your Huey pump. This canister up on top is a reservoir, so it stores some oil in here. And what he's thinking is there's an oil supply issue, so it's firing up and it uses the oil that's in this can to run for that few seconds, and then it runs out of oil and fizzles out, and then for whatever reason it's taking forever to build oil pressure, at least enough oil pressure to fire this. So he suggested putting an oil pressure gauge in the galley and seeing what my pressure is during cranking. Said it should build pretty quick, and 18 psi is the minimum pressure spec, I guess. So, ooh, I just almost tripped and died. I've actually had this for I haven't had this for that long, but we got the oil pressure gauge in. I'm not going to take that off yet in case I completely destroy it, but I actually got the sensor in the other day, so we're just going to temporarily get power to this, and we're going to crank on it and see if it builds oil pressure quickly, and pray that it does. So, yeah. I took the time the other day also to figure out what wires do what on my old Ford factory gauges. You know, it's amazing that they have so many issues with gauges. I mean, this is top of the line right here, this cheap board, you know. It's no wonder my gas gauge never worked, and my temperature gauge was always on the fritz. Shocker. So anyways, that's what this diagram here is, what wires do what. Looks like a battery. So we're gonna get this hooked up and see what happens. All right, so the gauge is on, everything's plugged in. It's wired to a jump pack, and the reason I did that is so it's a separate power source, so that way when I go to crank on it, the battery voltage doesn't drop low and do something funny with the gauge. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and crank on it and see where our oil pressure's at. This will be fun. I'm nervous because I have not yet. No idea what the oil pressure looks like in this thing, or if it even has it. I mean, obviously it has it since it has started. So we did some work to the fuel system, not to fix any leaks, because I don't know that we even have any leaks. Here's what we did. I had to remove the filter to get this stuff on, but we added a pressure gauge. This is on the inside of the filter, so it's not going to, if that filter's plugged up, it won't give us an accurate reading of what the engine's getting, but that'll give us some idea of what kind of fuel pressure we have coming off the transfer pump. Also added a sight glass. I don't know how well that's going to work, but I can kind of see the bottom down in there, I guess. So that'll at least tell us if we have fuel pressure, and if there's air in the fuel, we should be able to see it in that sight glass. This is all permanent, so anytime I want, I can pop the hood and check for air in the system, I guess. I also removed the check valve from up here and I put it back by the tank. It made more sense to me after I started thinking about it to put it at the tank than here. I apologize for the wind. I called Mike over to the central plant and asked him to turn it down, but I guess that hasn't come through yet. But it makes more sense to put it at the tank, so we moved it there. It kind of sucks because when I removed that filter from being threaded on, I guess, I don't know if it was just because everything was brand new, when I took it off you could see like a bunch of little tiny metal pieces shimmering and swirling down to the bottom of the filter, so I had to get a new one of those. I did not feel comfortable reusing that filter. So we're going to put on our new filter. Kind of sucks because that one has like 0 miles on it, but picked that up today. Also, I don't know if I mentioned or not, I'm sure I did at some point, but destroyed the dipstick tube when we put the cab on, so I have not checked the oil in some time, which I'm not too, I don't like admitting that, but anyways, so today I picked up a dipstick tube and I bought a dipstick. You know, the dealer wanted 90 bucks for a dipstick. Punched in the part number on eBay. Got a factory cat one for 34 bucks. So, but I couldn't find the tube on eBay, so I had to pay dealer prices. Which still, when I was on the phone with the guy, he gave me a price. I'm pretty sure it was over 100 bucks. When I punched it in online, it came up in their cat parts store thing. It was $50-something. So hopefully it's the right one. We're gonna find out here shortly. I'm gonna put the filter on, and then that climb up underneath it. And you got to pull the starter out to get the old tube out. So we're gonna get the new dipstick tube in so that I can check the oil, see where that's at. We'll reprime the fuel system. It's warmer today, so it might actually start. And then we'll be able to check oil pressure and see if that gauge is actually working, and if once it fires it builds oil pressure, or it starts to build oil pressure and then fires. We'll have to see. If the oil is low, I don't really know what I'm going to do there because that oil is expensive. It's like 17 bucks a gallon, and the thing holds 8 gallons, so I don't feel like wasting oil just to. So anyways, new oil pump should have been here Monday, and it's now Tuesday and still didn't show up, so I don't know. It got a new gasket, so we should be good to go. I'd like to get the truck parked where my Subaru is because that's a little bit flatter area. That way when we do refill it with oil, I can get an accurate reading, so that way we're not underfilling it or overfilling it. Yeah, once all that stuff shows up, we'll get it over there, drain the oil out of it, pull the pan, pull the pump, put the new pump in, and Bob's your uncle. Alright, so there you go. Old dipstick tube is out, and you can see how, I think this was like factory bends from like here down. This is what I added, which really wasn't that bad. The biggest issue was, it's kind of hard to see on the video there how awfully bent that is. It's bent sideways. I pulled it out and I couldn't get it back in, so that's why I chopped it off, and then I just left the end in there just so crap didn't go in there. So if you notice, these two are different. If you didn't notice that, you should probably get your eyes checked. So they offer different, for different vehicles, they offer different options for the dipstick. This dipstick pretty much came straight up and was at the back of the head, which was a little bit of a reach. My philosophy is if it's easier to do, you're more likely to do it. So I figured we were replacing the tube anyways, so I looked up the part numbers for the longer dipstick tube. This is also a flexible one, which is much more better for what I want to do. So that way I can plug that into the hole and then put this end here over towards like the fender, somewhere where you can kind of more easily reach it. Yeah, that's the new dipstick tube. And over here in this mess, we got the new Caterpillar dipstick. The only thing that the only thing I'm not thrilled about with this new dipstick, I don't know why I keep saying it like that too. The handle's not painted yellow. I was just gonna slam this sucker in here and try to match it up, see how if it sticks out as far as the other one did. There it is. Yeah, it looks about the same. I don't know if I talked about this in a video or not, but one thing I found interesting was this actually is not the factory dipstick. This was something that they had cut out of something else. Well, they didn't cut it out. They pulled it out of a different engine, and they had a longer dipstick and cut it down. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to pick this up on here. I don't even know what I'm filming right now. I'm filming the ceiling. So, oops. The ad and full marks are hand engraved, and then on the back side you can see there's like some writing, and then it's ground off. So they must have, I don't know what happened to the factory dipstick or the original one, but they damaged it, lost it, something, and someone made this dipstick. So slam that dipstick in before she wakes up. So that was kind of strange. I was trying to prime the fuel system, and because I added all this fancy doodads up here and more places for it to leak. So I was trying to prime the fuel system, and for whatever reason that lift pump just doesn't really seem to be working that well. So I decided to crank on it and use the transfer pump that's on the engine to see if I can get the fuel to that lift pump back there to prime the system. And I cranked on it and it fired right up. And mind you, this fuel line here that goes into the head was not even connected. And as soon as it fired up to, it built oil pressure, and it sat there and idled perfectly for a couple minutes. Well, not a couple minutes. I shut it off pretty quick because there's no fuel going to it. But it ran for longer than it usually does when it starts and dies. So turns out we don't have an air leak, guys, and we got an oil pressure issue. So can't remember if I told you I checked the oil and it's really high, but I think that's just because we're parked on a hill. So like I said, that's why I want to get it over where the Subaru is, because it's a little bit flatter, so we should be able to get a more accurate oil reading. Let's try to crank it up again and see if it'll run, see what kind of fuel pressure we got up here, see what kind of oil pressure we got. Besides that quick little fire up, I haven't seen the oil pressure on this thing yet. Pressure.